You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
We do it every Tuesday at this time. We get a recruiting update with Shea Dixon from On3Sports, the Bengal Tiger, on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Massive recruiting weekend for LSU in the rearview mirror. He's here with us to recap it all. Shea, we appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing well, Musso. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Last week when you were here, you told us to be on the lookout for a couple of commitments, and the one that popped wasn't on the list. It was Charles Ross. So, 4-star linebacker out of the Texas area. How'd this come about, Shea?
Yeah, this is one, if I would have dug a bit deeper into my bag, I might have been able to come up with. Look, right when Blake Baker, LSU's new defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, got here, he sort of evaled the board, and obviously, being at Missouri, he was familiar with a lot of the guys at linebacker in the 2025 class. And one guy he offered immediately was Charles Ross, and plays at North Shore, so in Houston, one of the bigger programs in Texas, certainly, and is someone with, look, Blake Baker, a Houston native, has a lot of ties to the area. Got kind of tipped off too early on during the eval period, got a good look at him, made the offer, and since then, he's run, and this is a linebacker, on the track in the 100, a sub 10.5, which is insane. These kids in Texas are running just wild speeds in track and field right now. But for perspective, everyone was kind of jaws on the floor when LSU running back signee Caden Durham went sub 4.5. Yeah. Now they've got a linebacker who's a junior in high school doing it in March. We're not even that deep into outdoor season right now. So very highly thought of. He jumped into the On3 top 300. Here, a couple of weeks ago as one of the top 300 players regardless of position. So big move by Blake Baker to be the first to offer, and Ross visited over the weekend for junior day and got to meet more with Blake Baker and kind of got to look around and get a better feel for the program and said, all right, I'm ready to shut things down. And he joins Keelan Moses as linebacker commitment number 2 for what remains the number 1 recruiting class in America.
How high can his stock rise, Shea, before he gets to campus?
I'm eager to see it because he's clearly, with the jump he made this offseason, they really liked his junior film. Now it's all about kind of how does he play out his senior season, but you'll have a lot of eyes on you when you play at a school like North Shore. So I think we're talking about a guy who could wind up finishing as a top 10 linebacker in this class.
Wow. Charles Ross in the boat, and there were plenty of other guys on campus. One of them, Bryce Underwood, Shea, and we played some audio on the show yesterday from Bryce Underwood kind of recapping his visit. And one of the things he mentioned was being on campus with a bunch of other top recruits. So what's kind of the impact there, having Underwood as, the stalwart here in this class right now, being there with all the other skill guys?
Yeah, for those who don't know, Underwood is the number 1 overall prospect in America right now, not just quarterback, a 5-star plus, meaning he's ranked as a 5-star by every service. And he's sitting at number 1 right now for On3 on the On3 industry rankings. It doesn't get any bigger than him. So when they landed his commitment in January, around the same time as Harlan Berry out of New Orleans, the number 1 running back, that's when LSU took over the number 1 class. And just getting him back to campus, right, on an unofficial visit from up in Michigan is a big deal. That's a time and money commitment for him, but he got back down. He'll be back for the spring game. But notable, as you said, this past weekend, he comes in kind of unexpectedly. He was back and forth on if he could make it, but he does, and that allows him on Friday and Saturday to hang out with a number of the commitments and targets and really to kind of give you a feel for things. On Friday night, he goes out to dinner with guys like 5-star corner DJ Pickett and then 2 of their biggest receiver targets in Jamie French, a one-time Alabama commitment who's opened things back up, and Caleb Cunningham, a 5-star wide receiver out of Mississippi. Both those guys are ranked as 1 or 2 of the top 4 receivers in the country right now. And obviously the number 1 receiver in the country is DeCorian Moore out of Duncanville, who's committed to LSU and has been so since August, back when he and Caden Durham both announced, and Colin Simmons all in that kind of same week stretch of where they were going to school. And LSU walked away with Durham and still has more now committed going into his senior season. So the next day, Underwood meets up with Moore, and Moore gets into town on Saturday, and they get to have breakfast. So in the span of 24 hours, much less than 24 hours, Underwood's eating with and hanging out with three of the top four receivers in the country. So I get a feeling this could be a banner year for Hankton and recruiting at the wide receiver position, because let's not forget, Ednakar's Teron Francis, the number one receiver in Louisiana, is already committed to LSU.
So, Shea, you mentioned DeCorian Moore there, and he made waves last night and kind of early this morning on Twitter, releasing a top 4. Does LSU have anything? How much does LSU have to worry about there? I should ask.
And here's how I would sum it up. One, he is not going to get caught by anyone. He will finish as the number one receiver in the country. And there's some great receivers. Look, Cortez Mills, a guy at LSU's after heavily. Khalil Lockett, another guy LSU's after heavily. They're joining the aforementioned that we just talked about as some of the best receivers in America. Yeah. But Underwood's just on another level right now. So LSU was never going to just get his commitment and everybody put their hands up and say, all right, we're done recruiting him. We're not going to go after him anymore. And this is a guy that everybody in America wants on their team. I think LSU feels some confidence because, yes, you do have Durham coming here. That's one of his friends who played with at Duncanville. But just as importantly, I think, is him seeing, hey, look, the quarterback's Bryce Underwood that I'm coming in with. I'm coming in with the number one running back in the country in Harlem Berry, and maybe 2 top 10 running backs if James Simon gets on board. And then offensive line-wise, LSU goes into this season with one of the best offensive lines in America, and it's because every year Brad Davis has been able to reel in really elite O-line classes. So I think he kind of he likes Baton Rouge, has a good feel for it, and again, this is a kid who grew up idolizing Odell. So yes, he's scheduling visits. I'd be surprised if maybe, let's say, he makes half the visits. The real school to watch is Texas. His family grew up around Austin. There's some Longhorn fans in the family, and it was a bit of a surprise, right, when LSU pulled off kind of the shocker and got him to commit early, because everybody always thought he'd end up at Texas. So as long as they can hold off Texas, I feel good about LSU signing him.
All right, enough offense. Offense is all the rage at LSU these days, and all eyes are actually on the defense, and specifically the defensive secondary. So let's talk about DJ Pickett, number one cornerback in the class of 2025. Where do things stand with him at LSU?
Well, whenever Corey Raymond was announced as the new secondary coach at LSU, I think immediately LSU fans thought, okay, how quickly can you go back to recruiting 5-star DBs, or going and finding, even if it's the 3 stars, the Jay Wards, the Cordell Flotts, guys who they always seem to just hit on. So how quickly can you make it happen? And DJ Pickett, the number one corner in America, is a guy that he had been recruiting at Florida. So he kind of picks up on those relationships with a number of kids. But Pickett visited in January, right before the dead period, and then February was a dead period the entire month, meaning no coaches could see kids in person, kids couldn't take any visits. And right when it ends, he pops right back up at LSU on a scheduled visit. So in basically the span of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, when kids have been allowed to visit places over the past month and a half, he's seen LSU twice, all the way from Florida. I've said it before, kind of on the podcast this week. If you polled the teams that are in this, that are really in it, and look, Miami, a number of the Florida schools, Georgia, everyone's after him. They would all probably say that right now LSU is the team to beat because of the hire of Corey Raymond and now him visiting multiple times and spending time around Underwood, all those guys, and seeing, hey, look, not only is this a place where I can be developed and go on to the pros, but I'm also potentially, if I commit here, bolstering the chances of coming in with the number one class in America.
So that's the next step, right, is bolstering the number one class in America. Who could be the next to pop? I mean, Charles Ross was, and now you turn your focus to who, Shea?
I think James Simon, in-state, is one that we've talked about a while. Running back out of Calvary is obviously one of the best, as I said, a top 10 running back nationally, so he's super elite. But Frank Wilson has wanted from the start to get this 1-2 punch of Harlem Berry and James Simon, and Berry's already committed, so hopefully Simon, in his eyes, that domino drops and this offseason after he makes some visits, or really at any point, and you get those two. Defensively, I'd probably look at Ednacar. Corey Adams is the one guy on the D-line in Louisiana right now who has an offer from LSU. Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples, who are brought on to coach the D-line and the edge position, have both kind of handed out new offers, and we've seen new guys emerge, but he's still the one in Louisiana. So I like to usually, if I'm having to make a pick, I'll go Louisiana. So I'll rock with James Simon or Corey Adams, a couple local guys that, with guys like that, they could really, you could plan out 15 visits, but we've seen it with LSU before and in-state kids. They could pop at any time.
Especially coming off last year's class, where it was, 9 of the top 10. It's a safe bet to look at Louisiana. I think you're going to be all right with that prediction. Shea Dixon's with us on 3 the Bengal Tiger on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Shea, one more for you before we let you go. We kind of alluded to it a little earlier with the DeCorian Moore thing, and how much does LSU have to worry about Texas kind of being the school to watch there? Will LSU be able to kind of hold on to this number 1 class throughout? I mean, that's a question that everybody has. You got all these guys in the boat. Can you keep them there?
Yeah, I think the answer is obviously twofold. They're at 10 commits right now. They'll finish with 25 or a little more than that. So obviously holding on to what you have is key, meaning Underwood, who has said he's firm, sticks. That Parler and Berry coming out of New Orleans, you expect to stick. DeCorian Moore, do you hold off Texas and others for him? I think that's going to be the one that everyone's really following. But it's also then adding. And we're talking about guys like DJ Pickett. And there's a number of corners who Corey Raymond's after that rank in the top 5 at the position. And on the defensive side, can they land a number of 4 stars or even 5 stars that not only help kind of bring you some depth at those positions and some playmakers, but also boost that chance of finishing number 1? I'll tell you this, Bama's not going to fall off. They're used to battling for 1, but in a transition year, it's probably going to be hard for them to finish 1. Kirby's always lurking. Georgia's going to be in the mix, but early on, and I say early, we're probably 9 months now from signing day or the early signing period in December. It's an LSU-Ohio State race for number 1, and with kind of the prospects each of them have on campus and seem to be trending for, or at least in the mix for, that's my team. So I think those 2 teams, LSU, Ohio State, are the ones battling out and toss Georgia into that mix.
He is Shea Dixon on Twitter at Shea Dixon. Again, on 3 the Bengal Tiger. Y'all get subscribed up over there. They do great work covering y'all, and you can hear Shea every Tuesday. I've been on Wednesday all day, Shea. Every Tuesday here on AFR. He'll be back next week with Matt. Shea, we appreciate it as always, man. Thank you.
Yes. Hey, when you texted this morning, I was like, I thought it was Monday.
Right.
Okay,
exactly,
so
man.
We're each a day off.
Hey, one behind, one ahead. Yeah. What can you do? We settled in the middle though, and we got it done. We stayed on track. Thank you, Shea.
No problem at all.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.